Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Binge the podcast. I am your co-host G Oliver here with the Nate Cowser. What's up, Nate?
Hey.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy post-election Tuesday. We finally have our brand new spanking president.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not quite yet, but it's pretty much in the bag. Um, unless they pull off a 2000 Florida again, which is totally possible, I guess. A lot of people saying it's not, but congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden. I think we can all breathe a little sigh of relief at this point. We got a crazy lineup for y'all today. We're gonna be talking about some stuff from way back in the day. We're gonna talk about a couple TV shows, a little new Netflix joint that caught our eye this week. And we're gonna kick it off with a couple documentaries. Nate, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I am all this TV and film at one time is really making me miss the stage. I haven't done anything physically on a stage outside of working with crew and administrative for a real nigga show. So I haven't been physically on a stage since February. March, the very beginning of March, and it's really making me miss it. These virtual shows that I've done, it's cool, but it's
I was
not
gonna
the
ask you
same
how you
thing.
felt about those. So
I'm
I
cool.
thought what you all did with so if you actually so I've seen it both ways, right? I've seen what are essentially, like stage readings.
Right.
Everybody's kind of like in their own space, at home, on Zoom. And then I've actually seen like the Real Nigga Show, actual full on productions where, everyone, the people involved, got their tests, took precautions and actually, did that thing together like a real stage play is done. You just watched it from, you just watched it from home. So I've seen a Real Nigga Show I think twice in person. I was not able to catch it the most previous performance, but like I've seen it twice, so I know that it was absolutely dynamic this time around as it was the first two times I saw it. And then one of my favorite TV shows, The West Wing, did a something similar. So they did a fundraising effort where they performed an episode on stage, like together. And that was really cool. So from your perspective, because I haven't done anything since COVID started, but you look like you've been a part of both. So what are your thoughts on that?
There because even for me, I've directed some quote unquote stage readings of plays that I've done before, that I've directed before. So that was cool because I got together the old cast from those productions. And one show we got to create a new cast, and we actually did like a couple monologue episodes. But it really that was in the beginning. It was needed. I needed to be in my arena. I needed to do something. I want to actually continue doing that in a different type of way. Still virtual, but just rethinking it. But the actual being in a space, and luckily it was a space I was familiar with, that made it comfortable. It was a small, tight cast. It was just the five guys and myself, Tracy Jiggets, and Mama Meekins, Troy Burton, for the crew. And it was, theater project is tiny in the back anyway. But the way we did it, it was really, it made everybody comfortable. And we didn't really worry because we all were really in rehearsals and really following the guidelines that Troy had put out for us. And it was scary because I hadn't been out in a while. So just doing that and being with these people for a couple months in rehearsal, I think we did like 2 months of rehearsal. It was helpful to kind of wing me into think thinking about how this could be done again, and figuring out the safety precautions of it. And we were kind of like the first ones to jump out there in the city to really do something like that. And I can see how other people are now trying to adapt to it as well. But it was cool, but it's still scary. It's scary, but
yeah,
it was scary.
Definitely mirrors that commitment that is required to put on a stage production in the first place.
Right.
But you know, when you take into account that type of commitment, man, I think anybody who does that deserves to be commended. Y'all did an outstanding job from what I heard, and from the little bit of it that I was able to see, just in snippets and whatnot. So I would definitely, it's been a rough year.
Hello?
You know, like
I think he went out. But if you have not already, please subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll see the link for it down there. You can join our Facebook page, our Instagram page. And you back?
I think so. I didn't think I went anywhere.
Yeah, you just got quiet, so it just went quiet.
All right, maybe something was happening. I might have I laid something on my workstation here. It might have hit a button by accident.
You good, but don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, at a Binge Worthy Podcast, and then on YouTube you can follow the Artist Exchange, and you can see our first 2 episodes of the series that I've gotten a lot of good feedback from it, and I'm just trying to push it. So please like, share, subscribe. We're trying to monetize our platform so me and Joyce could eat. You know, we both, we like to eat. So let's help us out with that. And then you'll see information at the bottom of the screen scrolling for how you can follow us, how you can like us. And we're always looking for new shows to watch. I'm new to this binge watching TV film type of thing. I watch film, but not as much as George does. So I'm still new. So we're always looking for new shows that you're watching, that you're binge watching. I don't want it just to be about what we like, but we want to challenge ourselves and watch stuff that we wouldn't normally watch.
Absolutely.
And I got a couple ideas. Shout out to my my first grade teacher who somehow found this. And she gave me an idea. The show is called The Good Place.
It's a good show.
Yeah,
that's a good show. I'm pretty sure that was going to come up in our list, or it was going to come up for us to talk about. But I would definitely recommend it for us to come back to at a later date.
I literally watched all 3 seasons like within 2 days. I don't know where my mind was, but I was cleaning.
Oh, you got into it. Oh,
yeah,
all right.
I'm a big fan of Ted Danson.
You have surpassed me at that point.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ted Danson. I love his sense of humor. So, but other than that, we can jump right into it. We at the 10-minute mark. So,
all right. So we got a couple good things coming up today. We got some vintage Whoopi Goldberg. We got some vintage Spike Lee. But before we jump into our content for today, we gotta go back for a second. So in episode 2, we reviewed a film that I had not had an opportunity to see. A film set right here in Baltimore called Charm City Kings, which is a coming of age tale about a young man and his friends who are coming up among, in the inner city of Baltimore, amongst the dirt bike culture.
Right.
And I'm not gonna go too much in it. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was I thought for the most part it was very well done. But I did want to respond to something now that I've seen it. That Nate, you talked a lot about the glorification of bad behavior, right? And the lack of consequences.
But I specifically, it was just a glorification of just that culture, not necessarily the dirt bike culture.
Right. So the criminal element that exists within that culture, right?
Right.
So and we kind of and you weren't. I get that you weren't trying to give it away, but also I
Right.
hadn't seen it yet, so I had very little context to really
Mm-hmm.
talk about. But I watched it, and I took away just an entirely different perspective watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, first of all, like I've always had an issue, and I had to wait until I actually saw the movie to make sure that this particular film also falls into that category.
Right.
But I have an issue a lot when it comes to what we call glorification of bad behavior,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus the exploration in the and just showing what it is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously criminality exists across all types of forms and within all types of groups, right?
Right.
I didn't really see it as a glorification, um or even trying to put it on a pedestal. But I think there is a reality when you're talking about, like, let's be real, like in Baltimore, we're having a big conversation even now about dirt bikes and their effect on the city and their place
Mm-hmm.
in the city. And I think that the thing about it is that, dirt biking is like a internationally recognized sport anywhere else. What separates what happens in cities like Philadelphia and Baltimore, and for the most part, these Caucasians who can go all around the world showcasing half the skills that some of these young men and women in our inner cities display is really
Mm-hmm.
just it really just comes down to resources and economics. Um, and I think when you have a passion like that, and yet you exist in an economic framework that would otherwise deny you access to things like that. I mean, dirt bikes are not cheap. The upkeep is not cheap, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it's really a glorification, more than it is an exploration of a very, very unfortunate reality for a lot of our young men and women who grow up in the inner city.
But it
To
doesn't
the
always have to. It doesn't always have to be connected to the criminal element. If it was a movie that showcased the issues that are surrounding dirt bike
But that is the
culture,
issue.
no, that's not what was seen. All those elements that you just or pinpoints that you just labeled, that's not what was seen in that movie. We saw the criminal and the violence associated with it. That's the problem that I have, because I still argue on many of the neighborhoods like Fells Point and Camden that have an issue with dirt bike groups coming through versus the motorcycle groups that come through.
Mhm.
And I still argue all the time. I've been to several different meetings about that. But these move, and this is the first one that kind of really where we see it, and is so locally driven in this
Mhm.
movie. But they did not. None of those issues. A little bit of it. The Meek
Well,
Mill's character kind of tried to give the young man a little bit more information on how to build his own bike, how to soup it up. So that
but
was a
he
small
gave, but
part
he
compared to
also
everything else.
gave him. You see what I'm saying? Like he gave him that.
Yeah,
You
but
understand
that
what I'm
was a
saying? Like
but
that
look
was
at the
something where,
direction of it. Look at the
huh?
direction of the movie. The direction of the movie kind of shunned him. That was the insignificant part, because the young man still ended up choosing the culture over this lesson that he was getting. And I know everything can't be cotton candy, school lessons and
Hmm.
perfect, but it still glorified the 12 o'clock boys over anything that could possibly happen in a good way. Like if somebody would have came in and turned the neighborhood or created a park or created a vehicle for them to thrive in, versus these young men having to then resort to violence to get
Right,
the
but
fame acclaim.
but if you okay, but I think that that's just a choice in the movie style. I mean, essentially, what you talking about at this point, wouldn't that be considered fantasy? Like
It's not,
that hasn't happened in a Baltimore or Philadelphia or
but that's
Pittsburgh
my
or other
issue.
places
This
where,
wasn't
hold on,
a
but
documentary.
I think the art imitates the life. And
That's my
while it's
point.
great, like we've been arguing for things like a dedicated dirt bike park and things like that for quite a
Right.
while now, but we haven't gotten them.
But
And
that's my
while
that's my point
and
with the
while the
film, though. It
city,
could have done that.
and people in charge kind of drag their feet on it, these young men and women are out here and they have these passions and they
But
have to fund
that's
them.
a cop out, though. That's a cop out because we have a skateboard park because someone came in and created a foundation to help them get a skateboard park. The same local non-leadership action that happened there could also happen with the dirt bikes. And
It
I'm
could
not,
happen. I'm
but
not
I'm, but
arguing
I'm
whether or not it could happen.
But
I'm
that's what I
arguing
would want to.
that
That's what an element of that film that I would have wanted to see
I
because then
think
that
that the
gives
element, I
people.
think it would have rang untrue.
But
You know,
it
I mean,
isn't
like that's like
untrue, but it's
problem
a
solved.
possibility. It's
It
not
is.
about.
It's always a
But it's
possibility.
but
But
I understand showing the culture of our city in its most honest state, but you still have to show these young people what is then possible,
no, but you
not
can't feed
what
them
is
fantasy
every
though.
day. But
I
that's
mean,
not
you can't.
fantasy though.
It
How is
is
it
fantasy.
fantasy when
It's
they just did it
fantasy
with
because
the?
hold
They
on,
did
Nate.
it
It's
with. But they
fantasy
did it
because
with.
it's never happened. It's never happened. It
Yeah,
doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in any black city that has a dirt bike
but
culture.
so that means we can't show our young people what is possible, even
We
though
can,
it's never
but yo, like
happened before.
we shouldn't be sitting on in a movie like this. I don't
No,
think that that's an appropriate
I feel we
place to
disagree on
try
that.
and pitch fantasy.
But
And
it's
to
not
the point,
what fantasy is.
but
I hate when that I hate when because I've been to several different meetings in support of school programs. I'm not quite sure you have too, but I'm tired
yes.
of the leadership and the powers that be that don't reside in the city, who children don't reside in the city. It's always giving us that thing. Well, we don't want to show them something that they can't necessarily obtain or a fantasy. That's an argument that
I
is
think that's
actually
very different from a
no.
movie that is trying to be grounded in a real life scenario
Yeah,
and
but I'm
not
tired
putting
of
out a
seeing that same.
fantasy happy
I'm saying
ending where
that. I'm
everybody gets
saying that.
to ride their dirt bikes on the
The why
city
is it
built
the
dirt
same
bike
thing?
park. Like
Homicide did
when that
the same
happens
thing.
or when it happens somewhere,
I'm
I'm
not
pretty sure
saying
that the movies will reflect that. I think movies will reflect that when it happens. But
no, but
in
that
this case,
but in this case, if you're using our city, because let's be honest, most of those people in that movie, the production weren't from here. So for me, if we're going to continue to show Baltimore in this light, and this specific, my argument is specifically about Baltimore being the face of this and the body of this. If we're going to continue to do that, we need to show that there's something because the money that they're making from this film could then been put into a foundation that helped put together a dirt bike park, like the same way they did with the skateboarders. They
well,
literally
I'm not.
have a whole
You know
park
what?
for
I don't
themselves.
know. I don't skateboard, and I don't know anything about how skateboard parks get built. I know that when it comes to dirt bike, we've had that. Like people have presented the idea of using unused lots and whatnot to do those types of things, and they haven't happened yet. And that's not to say that they can't happen down the line, but I think that when you're a storyteller, and unless you're doing a fantasy film, I think you
But I
do
hate the
have.
word fantasy though. The word fantasy means
Listen,
you
I'm just
can't
calling it a
get to that
fantasy and
point.
meaning it's something that it
It
hasn't
doesn't have to
happened yet.
happen it, but
It hasn't
often
happened yet.
art
It hasn't
art
happened. Like
but often
when do
art
we make
precedes it. Often
okay?
art precedes real life. So
And
we
what?
have
Give
to
me an
stop letting
example.
people. We have
When
to
does
stop
art
letting these.
precede? When
In
has
most
art
cases,
preceded real
most
life?
times, art shows us what we can do, what is possible.
Give me
There
an
was the first.
example.
I mean, the first black
Give.
president. We saw that in a movie before. We saw
Oh,
that in real life. That's I mean, that's the possibility that could possibly happen. We have to stop selling our children or that's a fantasy world. Let's live in reality because these children are living in reality every single day. And I'm just tired of movies that depict our city in a way where it's always going to be like this. That's just my
it
argument.
don't
I'm
have
not
to always have
It's
to
not
be like
about
that.
whether
But
I
if you're
like
going
a
to
film
depict
or
a
not.
movie that has basis in reality, I think that you
I
need
don't
to
have an
show both
issue
the
with the
good and bad.
reality.
Okay,
I don't have an issue with them showing the
so the
reality. But you
reality is
often
that
have to
some of our
show what's next. What's
but
next? The movie ends with these two young men who aided in their third friend being killed, now being able to live their life normally. Like that,
so
that's how the movie ends.
the movie didn't end like that though.
That's how it
The
really did
movie
end that way.
the so this movie utilizing the Baltimore dirt bike culture is really about the relationship between black men. And what you saw at the end of the film was an incredible sacrifice. The type of sacrifice, if you want to talk about what could be, hold on. If you want to talk about what could be and what needs to happen, let's talk about the sacrifice that two black men made at the end of that movie to ensure that this young man had an opportunity to live a life.
I get
like
that.
Let's talk about that. If you want to talk about realistic endings, or if you want to talk about realistic endings, let's talk about how in the black community, one of the reasons that I believe we are where we are is because some of the sacrifices and some of the things that are going to need to be done, some of the work that's going to need to be done, that work and the fruits of that labor will probably not be seen or experienced or benefited by the people who actually do it. It's going to take actual people who are willing to sacrifice certain things that they want in order.
Though I don't dispute anything.
So there's your hope right there. There's your hope right there.
I think it needs to go. I think it needs to go in a different direction, and that's my opinion. Because I also work with a lot of young men within the city, and that is always their out. That's always the out.
It's a realistic out, Nate, unfortunately.
But that's
like we can't sit here like it's not the only out. It's not the only out. But for a lot of them, it's the most accessible out.
And that's
it's the one that they can access the easiest. And it doesn't require it usually doesn't require a whole lot of upfront investment.
But that's my
and it is
point. You have to start showing alternate and varied options, because it just has to be more than this.
We always have
but the ending of this movie wasn't realistic. How many people would really sacrifice?
So wait, how you going? So wait a minute.
It wasn't.
So how you going to say that's not realistic? But then question my thoughts about them.
I didn't question your thoughts. I had my own opinion.
But I'm saying on the one hand, you saying that the ending with the sacrifice isn't realistic. On the other hand, you think that having an ending or having a storyline where he could have just found a way to buy his dirt bike and then go ride it somewhere where he didn't have to intermingle with criminals. Somehow that to you is realistic, but two black men deciding that they were going to make a decision.
You can't shape my opinion. I let you have your opinion. I'm not disputing.
I'm not shaping your opinion. I'm trying to ask you to end this. I'm trying to get you to explain how you juxtapose the two. You calling your opinion a realistic depiction, in my opinion.
I didn't say that.
That's a fantasy.
No, I didn't. But you used the word fantasy though. You did the same exact thing that you're saying that I'm doing, but I didn't dispute what your reality.
I'm going to dispute what you think. What you saying? I think that's crazy. But I think that you lose something. I think that you lose something in the movie when you place something in it that hasn't even happened anywhere yet. Like I could see if this had happened, and maybe not in Baltimore, but in other places.
Are examples of this that happened with other streets.
Yeah, but we're not talking about what they do for white people. We understand that what happens for what happens with white approved culture isn't always what happens with black approved culture.
It's not about race to me. I'm not bringing race into it because
I can assure you that skate parks would be a problem if the majority of skateboarders in any given area were young black men and women.
All I said,
like skating is cool because it's a white sport.
I just used that skate park as an example for what could happen. That was something that the city did not see happen. It wasn't something that was highly publicized. They didn't have to make a movie displaying the problems that they were having and all the deaths that were happening because of the skateboarders. Riding in the streets and such. I just use that as an example. It had nothing to do with race. It had nothing to do with being marginalized or whatever. None of that. All I said was this movie, to me, took something that we're already having an issue with in the city and then connected that to the violence that we're having in the city.
But
which is
okay,
reality. I'm not
and you're right.
disputing.
And I'm
I'm
just
not
saying, and
disputing the
all I'm saying
reality of
is
that.
that that is the reality in real
And
life.
I'm not disputing the
Not
reality,
all, but a
but
large
I
portion.
think when we start letting these films come into our
But
city
it's
and
a
create
film,
these
yo. It's
narratives,
not.
but
They're
to
not
me, it's
created.
not
Hold on, hold
that.
on, hold on, hold on.
I
If
think
you
it's a
can
bigger
say you, I
responsibility
think
than
that
that.
you can. I think that you can have a lot of opinions about
Yeah,
any
but
movie that you want. However, I think
it's
that
not
I
helping
think
the
that it's
issue.
irresponsible to say that this
No, it's
movie
not.
creates a narrative.
But
This
but
is a
look what
long.
no,
This narrative exists.
I'm separating what is fiction, which what this movie was, with the reality elements that was in it. I am saying we have to stop letting these films come to our city and just depict certain elements of the city that's true and not do anything
So,
for the
like, let
city.
me ask you something,
But
yo.
why
Like,
we've had the
would you
wire,
make that
we've had
argument? Would you
homicide.
make that argument for any other city, or is it just your relationship to your hometown?
Well,
Because I mean, we
I
see
can't
movies
really
all the time that depict violence. Like we've seen all
but
types of
I
gang-related
can't
movies
but I
about
can't
LA.
really
We've seen all
But I
types of
can't
movies
speak
about
for
all
I
different
don't
types
live
of
in
places.
LA. I don't live in
But I
LA.
mean,
I don't live in
I get
Philly.
it.
I
So I'm
don't live in New
asking
York.
you.
And
I'm asking.
I have the same feeling when I watch those films, but I don't live in those cities. So I don't know what elements of that movie is true or false. Other than the places that I've actually lived outside of Baltimore, I can kind of speak on those. But outside of that, I live in Baltimore. I see that this is an issue. So this movie only further criminalized the issue of dirt bikes. It did not help the issue at all. It didn't give any possible solutions. It did not give any possible pivots or programs or solutions or anything that could help the
Mhm.
issue. I think it just further pushed the issue to a negative space. You looked at this movie, what possibility did you see in this movie other than
Well,
somebody
the
helping
fact
a young
that
man get
the
into
fact that
who would be in
only
that
a
scenario?
small okay, so I'm glad you asked me that question because from the movie that I watched, there was only
You
a
saw the
very small
movie?
group that were actually criminals,
But that made
right?
up
And
the
the only
larger
reason,
part of the
and like,
movie.
and the thing, and it became a larger part of the movie. They were integrated in the movie,
Just the
but it was
activity of
made very
riding.
clear, huh?
Yeah, but just the element of just them riding for fun, that was a
Mhm.
slither of this movie. Everything else was associated with that gang of
Well, I
group.
mean, I don't know. You're like, my whole thing is like you're following one singular character, or
No, no,
you're
I watched
following
the
one
whole.
singular character through the
No,
movie,
no, I
and that
watched
was
the
his
whole thing.
experience.
No, I watched the whole thing, and it wasn't one singular character. It was three young black men. It was three of them.
The movie is about one.
No, but it still showed the lives of those
Of
three
course, it
young black
showed
men.
his relationship with his friends, but the movie was about him,
Who the
and
movie
it was
spotlight
and it
is
was very much, and it
really
was very.
irrelevant though, because you don't even get that from this. You see, I saw the three young men, and then I saw the two young men, and that's the reality that I see in the city. Because there's always somebody missing because of something tragic. But then you have the friend that goes this route and goes that route. All that I'm not disputing the truth, the reality, and even the beauty in that. I
You
am
just mad that
saying
they showed it in
and
this
I'm
film.
not mad at all. I just want to see more uh, options when it comes to people coming to this city making movies that depict the grittiness of this city, the realness of this city. And I don't have a problem with people saying it, but look what we did with The Wire and Homicide. You know, that was supposed to do the same thing, and oh yeah, that was this art, and it got a lot of actors jobs. But that depiction, I've been to London, I've been to other cities around the world. My friends go and travel. People know Baltimore from The Wire and Homicide. And this film, I believe, is going to do just as good as them because it's a good film. I'm not taking away from that. I just want better options associated with people coming here making films. Make them obligated to then turn some of that and return some of that and try to help the legislation of dirt bikes. You know, and on one side, it is unsafe. It is a nuisance to the city. I lived in Park Heights. It was shut down traffic. It was hard
Mhm.
to get in and out of Park Heights because it would be right there at the opening of it. But I just want better options when it comes to making films. That's the whole. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I decided to do this podcast. It was because I wanted to show the social elements, the historical, as well as the cultural connections and impact that films make. And this is one of the impacts that films often make is a negative one because it shows the truth, and that's it. Because this film was geared towards young people, I think it had a bigger responsibility to show other options. It and not so much change the storylines, but just
Mhm.
create a dialogue and conversation around how we can then make this happen better for us. Not just okay, close. Everything is shut down the set. Let's move out. Let's go back home, and then that's it. Because we're not hearing any other conversations other than whether people like the film or not, and that
Right.
just leaves it out there. That's my whole point and my perspective
Well, I
on
think
it.
that I think any film is going to take its perspectives and it's going to take its core narrative from numerous places. And in some cases, in this particular case, it's the dirt bike riding culture in Baltimore.
But we have to
Um,
change that.
we had a whole like award winning documentary around the dirt bike culture that focused on exactly what you're talking about. In this particular coming of age narrative, I think it would have. My opinion is it would have been a very lacking coming of age story if it didn't touch on those things. And the overall message and the overall theme of the movie, which was really about um, black mentorship and how young black men crave and look for father figures and,
Mhm.
and men that they can look up to, I thought was the focal point of the movie. I felt like the dirt bike, the fact that it was in Baltimore, that it was wrapped in the dirt bike culture, was really just plot devices more than anything else. Every coming of age story has them. Um, this one just happened to be the one that's from our city. I thought that it was incredibly relevant. I thought that it tackled the subject in a realistic way. Could it have had a more positive spin? I won't
It's not a positive
I
spin.
won't disagree with you on that.
But it's not
Um,
the positive spin though, because then that changes the reality that it then lives in. I just want, I at this point, especially
I
when it
mean,
comes to
my
stuff
thing is,
in
I
inner
would have
cities
found it
like this,
hard. Yeah,
we
go ahead.
need the divisiveness to stop. We need it to then trickle down to okay, what is this going to now do for the city?
Okay.
I don't want movies to be keep made in cities like Baltimore because Baltimore is not the only city like this. But I don't want movies to keep being made in cities like Baltimore and then they rap and that's it.
Well,
So
I
now
want these
the
movies to
stigma
be
is
made
there's less.
because I think that it's important. I want people to know what's happening here. Just like we have so many movies that show what's going on in LA and what's going on in New York and what's going on in London or Miami. I want Baltimore to be a part of that as well. And I understand that there's always going to be a need for positivity. I don't discount that. I think that a coming of age story with utilizing the dirt bike culture in Baltimore as a backdrop and not have touched on or rubbed shoulders with the very real criminal element that exists within that culture. Um, I think it would have rung false. I don't think it would have been as good of a movie. That's
Well, we
and
go
that's my
differ.
opinion.
Yeah, we go ahead to differ on that because that's not. Mm-mm. They owe more, and I think the industry itself owes more. You can't just keep making films and because that's leaving a almost like a stain in the city. That's like a calling card to the city because people outside of our city only see the narrative from the news or from statistics. So now films are now depicting and television series are now being depicted. So we need further wraparound services when it comes to these films. And I don't think just wrapping it up and that's it because it didn't give anything forward. It didn't pay it forward any way for me. So
Well, I mean, how much do you know about the people involved in the film and what they've done for the city? I mean,
uh
'cause
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, a lot of the research that I've done specifically for this film, because it is one of the reasons that I wanted to I wanted to include it in the very first episode, but I was still kind of searching for the paper trail that is left in the city. And outside of a couple town hall meetings with the trying to group together the dirt bike people and doing interviews with them, there wasn't any sustainable work done with that community that can say, well, how can we help you all not be the negative light in the city, or shine a better light on you all? Like, what can we do to help set up some program? The same thing that they're doing for the Squeegee Boys. What can we do to improve this? Not just, pushing under the rug or anything, but we may have to just come back to this film and just figure out, maybe that could bring on somebody. That'll be a good way of kind of introducing a guest to the show to kind of talk about some of the now what elements of a film like this. So that's it.
Yeah. Nah, I feel you. I don't know if that's film's responsibility as far as like those who make films and whatnot. I think that's what we have a city council for, and that's what we have elected officials for.
We've always had them, and we still have the same problems. So as artists, I think we need to do our part instead of just glorifying or highlighting and making money from. So that's it.
All right. So moving right along after that very spirited conversation.
I just knew that from. I wish we would have did that last week, because it would have helped kind of tell the story a little bit better. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
But just do better.
I hadn't been able to see it before. I think it would have definitely, like next time, maybe when we know that a spirited conversation like that is going to happen, we hold off and put it in the next episode.
Right.
But let's get to what we really came here to talk about this evening. The first one up is an old school classic entitled The Telephone, 1988, classic vintage Whoopi Goldberg. Nate, tell us about this film.
This was one of the early films of Whoopi Goldberg after her success, her first initial breakout success on Broadway with her one-woman show. And this film kind of gives us a glimpse, if you never saw her do that one-woman show. And Whoopi Goldberg is now labeled a comedic actress. I think it's gotten a little, people look at her and see comedian, but she's a comedic actress. And she's done various projects. And in the 80s, she did a string of I don't want to call them B-list movies, but really interesting movies that I think either she selected or her management that kind of showed her range. This movie was one of the only movies that I ever knew to be like a one-woman show movie. And it kind of took her stage performance and put it into a kind of a 1 hour and some change film. And it was really interesting. It's her alone in this apartment, just doing various characters. I don't want to ruin it. Well, you saw it. You saw some of it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's people who know me know I've watched this movie 1,000,001 times. But it's definitely something that I've watched because I always wanted to be an actor. So it was something that I learned to create characters with. I learned to transition between multiple characters, and she really this is one of her only films that she doesn't really talk about, or she gives a lot of credit to. I think it was an issue with editing, the last, creative editing rights and such. Yeah. But this is one of my favorite movies from her. But if you are an 80s Whoopi fan, then you probably seen this, but this is one of the first ones. Okay. After she made her initial entrance into, the world of acting and such. But I suggest you watch it, and the response from it is either you love it or you hate it. I've never seen anybody that was lukewarm.
Right.
And I've made quite a few of my friends watch this film. Quite a few relationships probably got ruined because I made them watch it. But But I love it, and I think it's something that you should definitely watch. And actually, her character name in the movie, I loved it so much. I named my jewelry company after her, after this movie right here.
Okay.
So that's how much I really love it.
So big influence on you.
Yeah, it was
I
a big
thought it was
influence.
good. I thought it was good, and it's funny, you prefaced this, or you started the conversation talking about Whoopi Goldberg, and I think I may have missed the whole kind of like Whoopi as like kind of like a typecast comedian. Whoopi Goldberg's always been funny.
Right.
But I guess as a kid, my introduction to Whoopi Goldberg, like my first time was The Color Purple and
Right.
Ghost.
Right.
Right. Neither one of
That
those,
was
at
90s.
least, especially when I'm looking. Well, yeah, because I like. So without, I guess I'll go. Yeah, I ain't tripping. I tell y'all my age. So The Color Purple, and when we talked about this last week, came out the year I was born. Okay, so it was probably almost. Well, I probably saw The Color Purple for the first time when I was like maybe like 6 or 7, right? And then, like you said, Ghost was like the 90s.
Yeah.
And that was my mother. My mom was like a huge Patrick Swayze fan, so we had every Patrick Swayze VHS in this joint. So Ghost was something that, excuse me, I remember seeing very early on, and
but that was still like mid 90s though.
That was probably like mid 90s. I think Ghost came out like 93, 94. But what I say all that to say that for me, Whoopi Goldberg was just an actress, right? Like, and I know what you said is absolutely true. Because as I've gotten older and I've gotten to see more of her career and whatnot, and I know that there's people out here who, that's the funny lady. But it was just funny. It's just weird to me because my introduction to her were in two really powerful, dramatic roles, right?
Right.
And she's always been funny. She has a natural, how like you meet people and they have a great sense of humor. A lot of her characters have come off like that to me. But I thought The Telephone was incredibly good. It wasn't necessarily a comedy, but it's Whoopi Goldberg. So like the situations and whatnot
because she's by herself,
so well done, and she's by herself. They are like her neighbors and whatnot. But yeah, I thought that you're right. Like as far as like really showcasing her range, because watching her seamlessly kind of go from one character to the next while she's on the telephone, it was pretty dope. I give it 4. I definitely give it. It's definitely binge worthy. I would definitely recommend everybody checking it out.
And it mimics a stand-up show, a one-woman show, like a theatrical performance. But the comedic part, it came into play when people were comparing her to Monique, and is a difference between when you start off as a comic and you become an actress versus you start off as an actress that's funny and you begin to do comedies. But she's done everything, and that's what separates her from Monique. She started off as an actress.
Gotcha.
Who was just funny and did characters. So I would suggest, if you haven't, go through her 80s projects and look for her one-woman show. Google her one-woman show, and you'll see her seamlessly go from character to character. And it's so, what you'll see on probably YouTube is like a snippet of it, but it was a full theatrical production where she went, I think she did like over 20 characters, but it's definitely my favorite. So I'm always suggest you watch it.
And that's not an easy feat.
Right.
And I can tell you from personal experience, like particularly on stage, moving or shifting through various characters is not an easy feat at all.
Yeah.
So definitely binge worthy. The Telephone, 1988, currently on Amazon Prime. She's Gotta Have It, the original. Classic Spike Lee. Classic Spike Lee. Yo, all I can say about this movie, yo, is I watched this movie in preparation for this, right? And yo, that ending, where they all like dancing.
Yeah.
Yo,
I think Spike Lee
It is
showed us,
so
and he
like it was
doesn't get.
just like we don't get movies like that anymore.
Well, I think Spike Lee was definitely unique in of himself because I think what he tried to do in terms of him building, because this is another one of his earlier films, what he's tried to do throughout his career is show that we can do what you're doing and we can make it seamless. And I think this was his attempt to doing an art film. And it really it was almost shot as a documentary, but where
Right,
there was
very
no fourth
avant-garde.
wall. Right, it was fourth wall, but I think what he tried to do was show all of Hollywood and us, I believe us, that he can do any type of film. He's not just a black director or a black film but he can do anything, and this was his way of showing an art film, and it was very much so. I'm not, and we're going to talk about the reboot of this in a later episode, but I don't enjoy that because it took away all of the nuance of an art film, and it kind of
It was
I
much
hate the
more
word.
straight. It was much more of a straightforward
Yeah, it's
handling
not
of the material.
right, and this new age idea of what relevant is. It can do too much. It does too much, and I just had an argument earlier about the new Coming to America, and it's
Right.
all star-studded comedians, and that's too much, in my opinion. I haven't even seen it yet, and I feel like it's gonna be too much because it's gonna be too much about who you looking at versus the story itself.
Versus the story itself.
Right.
I can buy that. I buy that. The only thing that would give me pause about it is because I mean that's pretty vintage Eddie Murphy. You know what I mean? I like he brought a bunch of comedians. He's always brought comedians together. We saw it with the first one. We saw it with, we would talk in episode 1, we talk about Interview with the Vampire. John Witherspoon, Kadeem Hardison, and then of course, the classic Harlem Nights, which was really just a who's who of
But it
your
still
more
was.
popular, but you're right.
It
But
was more subtle though. It wasn't at that time.
and
Those
it was a
people
good and
weren't
it was a
big
good
names like
story.
that. Yeah, at that time, those people weren't big names.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the Della Reese and the Arsenio Hall and Red Fox and of course what's his name? I can't think of his name, but you had the big names, but everything else wasn't so star-studded that you were paying attention to the background and not looking at the story.
Mm-hmm.
But often these reboots will follow a kind of a system of you got to get these names in it, you got to get these faces in it, so people will come out and see it. Versus when the original was made, they just made the film and didn't really put.
Well, they're all. I mean, like. We were denied a lot of, as a people, a lot of some of our amazing and like some of the most talented, just in all areas, not even just in comedy, but to have been denied the accolades and the recognition,
Right.
But
the movie,
I think it just exists I think it just exists in a different time. Right,
yeah,
like
but
you bring like
though. We didn't need accolades. That movie won very few accolades,
well,
but it made
I'm not saying
a lot of money for its time. But it still didn't, like, even this movie. It is timeless. We're still talking about it. For them to make a reboot shows its relevancy.
Yeah,
and often because it did not win or the actors didn't get paid as much, we lose that. But we know those actors from that.
Well, I was just making the argument or the case that at this point we live in a time where we are getting the accolades and the recognition, and we are seen as like top tier, and I think for Eddie Murphy back then, I think for him being able to bring those comics like Red Fox, to bring Adela Reese, to bring some of those older cats, Richard Pryor, who came before him, who never got to see the type of like success in the way that Eddie Murphy had it, even though I think he recognized that there was no way that he could have been who he was without them coming before him. And I think that because of what they went through, I think that the comedians today, you know, I mean, you look at a Kevin Hart, right, or Dave Chappelle, who have risen to like meteoric heights in a very short amount of time, and they're doing it, and rightfully so. And there's so many who came before them who were just as talented and literally didn't get to see that type of success because of the color of their skin.
But I think the focus is so much on the success portion that the work is not going to last. So we'll probably still be talking about this. She's Gotta Have It years after this reboot is off the air. And I don't wish them any bad success. I'm just saying there's such a focus on success. Some of the names where they're just cranking out work, and it's not something that's going to last.
But let's be honest though, Nate. Like that's most of your reboots now.
Well, that's most
of your reboots. I think, you know, like that's just the reboot. I feel like, yeah, that's the reboot hustle. I mean, yeah, you get to cash in real quick on what came before, but the quality of work very, very seldom matches or surpasses that original content. So,
and that's my issue. That's just my kind of nod to them. But this film, it you can tell it was in the beginning phases of him filming, because there was some errors in filmmaking, but
right, from a technical standpoint,
right. But in terms of who he is now, I don't agree with him speaking out on other filmmakers. It's more specifically the Tyler Perry's. Because
hold on. I think that might be a topic. I think that might be a topic for a different conversation.
No, but I'm saying, because
I feel you.
The errors in his filmmaking in the beginning, but yet he still, you know, even though his content was 1000%, it was more technical.
And I think that's what he's speaking to. I think that,
but you know, people got to get to where they're getting to in their time, not your time.
That's true. That's true too. Tyler Perry's had a lot of time though, but I don't want to get too deep in this conversation because I feel like it'll eat into our time.
Now you worried about time.
Well, I wasn't expecting the Charm City conversation to go so long either. But we
go do our homework. Then we go do our homework.
All right. So, and She's Gotta Have It though. The subject matter itself.
Yeah.
I was like, I did a quick Google search and I kind of just went down like a long list of like black films that were released like within like the 3 or 4 year period before and after She's Gotta Have It. I thought the subject matter was something that was very revolutionary, or like not. I don't want to say revolutionary. Like feminism and these ideas have always existed. But this was definitely a film that set apart, right? So you've got this film that tackles this really tough subject matter. To be honest, I mean, when you really think about what that movie is about, and this woman who is trying to exist in the world, without being trapped by it, attached by it.
But those women existed. I think it was.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But I think it was the first time that we'd seen it in one of our films on film.
Well, it was given an honest depiction, and she wasn't
given an honest depiction.
She wasn't just a loose woman.
That's what I thought was really interesting about it, right? Because the way that it was done, not so much what the subject matter was about, but the way that it was handled.
But this shows you, and many people make arguments now, and I hate to keep comparing the two because they are faulting Tyler Perry for writing about women and not being a woman. But he was able to direct and co-write a lot of this work, and he was a man, and he just saw a perspective. And I think it was something that, in terms of being a male director, tackling this and Girl Six, really, because they
Yeah.
both dealt with, women asserting their sexuality and being in control of it, but being able to set boundaries and do what we assume guys were doing. But we all got that one aunt that we know borderline was, out there.
She was a cat
But
woman.
in many ways, but it's just interesting being able to see perspectives now versus then, and allowing, so like, this was a big deal then because people weren't willing to admit that they were sleeping with various men, and getting their dessert from each one of them.
Right.
But uh, I love this movie. I love Spike Lee movies in general because he gets to tell a story from the perspective of himself, and he stays honest throughout all his films that way.
Yeah. Definitely agree. Absolutely binge worthy. She's got to have it. Not sure. Do you know where the original is playing? I bought
Where
it.
it was on Netflix.
It was okay. So the original.
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
Netflix.
So the original is on Netflix currently. Go check it out. Let us know in the comments what you think. She's got to have it, directed by Spike Lee. The original, not the Netflix series. We're gonna talk about that next week.
Right.
Next up on our list, we got 3 throwbacks this episode. So this week we're gonna be talking about our final throwback is the Bodyguard. I believe this was the theatrical debut for Whitney Houston. Starring the leading man of the early 90s, Kevin Costner. Whitney Houston is essentially playing a version of herself, a super famous singer, pop star, who becomes the target of
a stalker,
and needs a bodyguard. And Kevin Costner, the quiet white man samurai, shows up to save the day.
Yeah, I think, and this story, how this movie came together. I love the fact that they gave Kevin Costner a moment during her funeral to tell that story, because this Whitney Houston, unlike the Barbara Streisands, and I'm trying to think of other, Diana Ross, Cher, that's all like good actresses that were singers as well. Well, good singers that were actresses, or vice versa. But those 4 kind of set the standard to making, and maybe Bette Midler too, but making films and having movie careers. And we see that Whitney Houston's career was cut short, and I would have, it has been said by many people that she was veering towards becoming more of an actress because her voice was changing. But this movie right here broke so many records, and it did not get critical acclaim in the beginning because they did not want to see this black woman with this white man. And this is one of her first movie where she set the standard to doing the soundtrack as well. The soundtrack still like
it slaps.
Right. And and it's one of her diamond records, actually. And it really just, I know she made Dolly Parton a lot of money doing this film and the soundtrack, because we don't realize that song is actually a Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
you do. It's in the movie.
No, but I'm just saying. But people don't credit Dolly Parton with this.
Well, yeah, they do. They kind of do. So
that's if you know Dolly Parton. But if us, most of us we thought that was Whitney.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, you're probably right. If you never saw the movie, or if you weren't paying attention, like, I don't think they ever name drop Dolly Parton in the movie, but there is a scene where the original song is playing,
but compare that to hers. Like,
there's no comparison. There's no comparison. But when I saw the movie, in the movie they talk about the song, and then at the end of the movie, she sings the song.
Yeah.
So for me, at least, and maybe that's just my cinephile ways. Like I made the connection almost immediately, not knowing that it was Dolly Parton.
Well, I'm a Dolly Parton fan, so I knew it already. But
okay. So no, I mean, there's no comparison to anything like that. And you're right. I'm pretty sure, but Dolly Parton made buku money off of
and
that.
the song was, I believe, was like almost 2
that
decades
song
old.
was like #1 on the Billboard charts, probably most of the year.
Yeah, I think it was like 17, 18 weeks.
Yeah,
at #1. But
it was crazy.
this movie definitely is one of my once a year movies that I watch.
But here's the thing. It's a really good movie.
It is.
And that's the other thing. It's like, like the story, the story was good. You see a lot of movies now with like rappers and actors, and they got these roles that are like it's really built around their persona.
Yeah.
And I think that a little bit of the case can be made for that, but it just the storyline, like the story was cohesive. Yeah. The acting was on point.
For this to be her first, well, she did some TV cameos before. She did a lot of those, but it really, like you said, for this to be her first film, and everybody hated it. Not in terms of our audiences, but in terms of the critics, she got dogged. And many critics, because they just could not separate Whitney
from the art, right?
From the film, and she did and I liken her to a Diana Ross. Actually, I believe Diana Ross is a better actress than she is a singer, but that's my opinion. But like Diana Ross, you really saw them come alive in a film, and you like, she really can do this. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Whitney.
And I mean, she went on to put up some what I thought were decent performances in the few movies that she did. I mean, she didn't get to do a whole lot before personal issues took their toll. But there was the Bodyguard.
She wasn't an actress, though. That wasn't her forefront.
That wasn't her forefront. But I mean, she got some great coaching. I mean, the star alongside Kevin Costner, who was pretty much at the top of his game when this movie came out. She did a movie with Denzel Washington, The Preacher's Wife, and Waiting to Exhale, which I thought was an excellent movie, and if I remember correctly, was actually very well reviewed as well.
The only one that I'm gonna dog her out on is Sparkle. That's the only one.
Oh yeah, well,
that I'm a dog her out on. I didn't see that
one, so I don't even know.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Didn't she do a Cinderella too? Where
she was in Cinderella,
and she was so
that was more of a TV movie,
right?
That went to DVD, yeah, but
gotcha. So definitely binge worthy. Currently on Netflix, The Bodyguard, starring Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. On to our next section, which is TV shows. We're gonna talk about GreenLeaf. Woo, boy. GreenLeaf. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate GreenLeaf. I feel like in the Black community, and mind you, this was one of your choices, and I had not. I had watched like the first 2 episodes, and again, this was back when it first came out, and I think I had saw like maybe like episode 1 or episode 1 and 2, and because I was just ripping and running and all over the place, I really had little patience for.
He was a heathen.
I was probably on the back end of my heathen days.
Thought you was gonna get delivered.
Right, I know, right? but really, I went through this period where like I just couldn't do the whole like Monday nights. I got to be here at this time to see this. Yeah. So now that streaming,
you can watch on YouTube. It always came on YouTube after.
Yeah. I have a different relationship with YouTube than you do, Nate. But I don't
know how to think that. I don't know where that's supposed to go.
No. I like, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. I just said. I was never really a fan of bootleg movies. There was very few instances where there was something that
bootleg
I wanted to see so badly that I was going to sit through poor quality. When I first discovered YouTube and that you could watch new stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, well, the network like OWN had this on their channel on
Well,
YouTube.
I'm
That's
going
how
back.
it works.
I'm going back a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
So when my first introduction to YouTube and that you could watch new stuff was basically just someone uploading a recording. Like basically they recorded
Oh
their
yeah.
TV,
Yeah.
and then you could go and watch that, which was like the internet version of bootleg.
Mhm.
And it was, for me, it was just a quality thing, yo. Like I like to sit down and like clearly see what I'm looking at, clearly hear what I'm
Right.
looking at. I didn't have anything against bootlegging from a moral standpoint. It was just more that like if I'm gonna sit down and watch something, I really want to sit down and watch it. Now,
Right.
mind you, that was my perception of YouTube for a long time until recently in the last like 3 or 4 years where I realized that
Mhm.
like OWN has a channel on YouTube and
Yeah.
all these different places. So if you miss something in syndication, you can actually go and officially watch it.
Right.
It took me a while to get there. Um, but Greenleaf, man, you know, I think it's a show that's needed, but I'm very early into Greenleaf. I'm probably right coming up on the end of the first season. And
Yeah.
I can tell you, I'm like, it really so far has really like there's a very fractured relationship between the Christian church and the black community right now. And Greenleaf Greenleaf is just widening the divide.
Well, and many people who I know personally, because I'm a God fearing man, I'm Christian, but a lot of people who have been church hurt, or a lot of people who are so anti-black church,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they won't watch this, and for me, I'm saying they would get a lot of joy out of watching the church be messy. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, there's for the last like 5 or 6 years, there's been a undercurrent of information that is forcing specifically the black church, or this the mega church or church in general, to kind of face a lot of the ills that they have been going through, and putting people through, and just the business of church. It shows so many of the true depictions, just like we was talking about in Kings of Charm City Kings.
Tom
It
City
did the
Kings.
same thing with
Mm-hmm.
church, right? It did the same thing with them, with the black church and this family that was kind of heading up the church. Now, when you really get into it, then we'll probably come back and kind of go over this, because then
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see like more of the episodes, because it gets more and more uh to a space that we're not used to seeing. We're not used to seeing churches being disbanded and pastors being brought out of the. We're not used to seeing that. We're just starting to hear about those things,
Mm-hmm.
scandals of the church that used to be whispers, and now it's on front page. You
Yeah.
know, so it gives you a lot of Jamal Bryant. It gives you a lot of Eddie Long, without their specific scandals.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely,
But the similar situations.
well, the impact
Because
of
I mean,
their
already
bad choices.
I mean, I'm only a couple episodes in.
I'm telling you, that's just
We
the
got the
iceberg.
son who's banging the white girl, cheating on his wife. His wife, no.
Well,
Like she no.
but
We got
yeah,
the prophet daughter who done came back to expose the
mhm.
uncle who out here like messing around
But
with little
see,
girls.
this show was one of the first shows that gave you like a P Valley or a Lovecraft Zone, where you thought after the first season, what could they possibly do? But
Right.
they shocked us in so many different ways and gave us so much
Mm-hmm.
church business that they actually slowed down
Right.
and began to really dissect the black church and how the mega church system works.
Yeah.
And it really was general to all churches, but I want you to watch more
I
seasons
am.
before we kind
I
of
am.
dig into it. But you'll be shocked as to how it unfolds and
So I can say
how
this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
they
off.
actually about to go off. I hope somebody saves them and picks them up. We thought Oprah was going to keep them on, but they actually are. I think they have one more season to go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it really does. Yeah, we'll come back to it. I
So
don't even
man, I'm
want us
trying
to
to tell you,
go about
if
but
you like the drama and scandal, I don't know. Like if you this is like Tyler Perry, but just way better written. You know what I'm saying? Like the drama, some of the drama is outlandish. Like, and it's not, but at the same time, it's not.
it's church.
It's
That's church.
it's only outlandish because we've never seen anything depicted on screen like this before, at least in this way. So but it's really not. But it's really entertaining. Um, and if you've had your issues or your suspicions or your if you've been second guessing your relationship with church, like this is a show for you. But it, dug deep in there, I think there's something for to make the argument in the case for the other side of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, it
And
definitely.
that
But that's how
being,
it gets.
yeah.
That's how
So
it's gotten people, though. That's the part that has gotten people because
right,
it it appears to be bashing the church, and it's
but
really showing a lot of truth.
see, it's
But
foreshadowing. I get the angle, and it's the angle that the church has been saying. It's like
well, the
you
church
know,
ain't
like
been saying it. It's the
well,
been the church members.
I think that the church. Well, that could be a topic for a different conversation. Maybe we can discuss a little bit more of that after I've seen more of it. But I think that the church has, without just airing out all that dirty laundry, which I don't think anybody does willingly. I think that they have, for the most part, made the case or have always tried to set the expectation that look, like we're not perfect here, right? We convene for this one purpose, but outside of that, and even sometimes within that, we falter. We have the same hang-ups and we sin just like everybody else.
Well, I'm gonna
Um,
just tell you, this ain't the church show for that.
um,
It ain't gonna be that self-deprecating. It's not.
all right.
I'm
So
just being honest with them.
so I'm 7 I'm about 6 or 7 episodes in.
Oh, you got a couple of
I think
seasons.
it's extremely binge worthy. I
Yeah.
would recommend it to anybody. I mean, first of all, like the performances are top notch. You know, like we've got some of our Lynn Whitfield, who is a national treasure, and I mean she on her best bullshit in this one.
Um,
The acting is very I think is very even keeled across the board.
right.
The lead actress, who is the daughter of the pastor of the megachurch, I think she, from what I've seen in the first 7 episodes, um, um, I think she's about to go through a real emotional journey that I think they've already shown that she can handle, like from an
But
acting.
I'm gonna say this. Just leave it there because I
I'm gonna
want
leave
you
it
to
there.
get it to
But binge worthy,
season 3, 4,
definitely binge
5.
watch.
As soon as you finish or catch up, that's when
Okay.
we're gonna go back over it because your whole demeanor
My whole
will be
perspective might
different. It
change.
will
All right.
be,
All
and it
right.
kind of tames itself down as they kind of get to the end of the seasons. But you ain't seen nothing yet, so let's just
All
go
right.
to that because
So our next on the list is yo little fires everywhere. Mm, mm. I think Reese Witherspoon been in hiding ever since this came out.
uh-huh.
So there's a black guy, and he always playing. I cannot think of his name. He's a black actor. He always playing just an evil, nasty,
Mm-hmm.
just reprehensible character. Like in everything he does, it's like I hate this guy, right? That's how you're gonna feel about Reese Witherspoon coming out of this. I
Well,
don't
the
even know how to.
people sleep on Reese Witherspoon because she a little white girl and and she's played some pretty ditzy characters in the past,
No,
but
she played one
Reese,
bitchy character.
she played a couple. She's been in
Did
a
she?
couple movies
I
like
thought it
that.
was
She's
just
always the
Legally
blonde.
Blonde.
Yeah, it was. I can't think of it was two other ones
I
that
mean, there
she
was two
also
Legally
played.
Blondes, but
Yeah,
other
but
than that,
there was two other movies she was in. But I'll
okay.
once the name pop in my head, I'll say it. But she's one of those safe, you know, characters that you see, like
Mhm.
like a Holly Berry that you ain't really seen her really go into it deep, but she she's pretty good. I've watched her in
I mean,
other
she was
things.
damn good in this. Like, she was damn good in this.
Right.
I'm not even sure how to. Little Fires Everywhere is about the collision of two families. One is very white, very privileged, very well-to-do family. The other is a mother and a single mom and her daughter who move around a lot. And it's just the story of these two families, like coming together and the fallout from that. But Reese Witherspoon just plays the quintessential Karen.
Yeah.
And I mean, she plays it with much gusto. I found myself wanting to reach through the television screen every episode. Like, yo,
but she never. When I say she never plays these characters. All her characters are always likable and
yeah.
But she never plays this type of character, and it feels real. It feels a little real.
It does. It feels very real. On the flip side of that, Kerry Washington, on the top of her game, I have to say.
I just want her to find a different cry. That's my only note for her.
Yeah, no.
Well, her lip
leave her alone. Leave her alone.
That's it. That's it. I didn't say anything else. I just said just the way
Kerry Washington, she got that quivering lip cry.
Yeah, I just want that.
Viola Davis got the snot, got the teary snot. You know,
I can deal with that. I love a Viola Davis,
but I'm just saying they both cry. They got one way to cry, and they gonna cry that cry every time.
Yeah, I just want you, practice in the mirror a little bit. Practice a little bit. Just realize when that lip about to flip up, and just even it out, smooth it out.
But
cry from the eyes.
Little Fires Everywhere. If you like character-driven stories, this is definitely for you. If you like stories with plot twists and kind of like unexpected turns, this is definitely one for you. And just some incredible acting across the board. Like, we've talked about Reese Witherspoon. It was funny because I don't think in a lot of the online chatter and whatnot, I don't think the guy who played her husband got enough props. Because this was also a very different type of character for him. And what is, oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name, but he was real big back in when they were doing like the I Know What You Did Last Summer and the Skulls and I think was he in? No, I don't think he was in any of the Scream movies, but he was in a lot of those like teen dramas, teen movies back in the day. And this was a much more mature role, I think, for him, and a different type of role. The young lady who plays the daughter, Kerry Washington's daughter, and then I think who blew everybody away was the episode where the young lady plays the young Kerry Washington. So it's a really good story, and had some incredible acting. I thought it had some incredible writing. I not enough credit is given to writers, like, and I just want to be one to say when you watch a production and you really, really like it's really good, that's the writer. It all starts with the words on the page. And I just thought this was some really exceptional writing in Little Fires Everywhere, and then they were able to bring a cast together that really like just set those words on fire. Definitely binge watchable. I think it's a limited series. It's based on a book. Don't know yet if we're gonna get a season 2, much like Lovecraft Country. I know definitely people would love to get a season 2. Don't know if that's going to happen. But I believe the series is about 8 episodes long.
Right.
So definitely worth checking out. I definitely binge worthy. Like 8 episodes. If you plop down on a Saturday with nothing else to do, you'll get through it that day.
So
So moving on, our next category is our something new category, and this time we get to talk about something new, just released on Friday, this past Friday on Netflix, Citation, which is a new Netflix original. It is a Nigerian film, filmed on location in Nigeria. It is a entirely African cast. It is the story of a university student who is sexually assaulted by her professor, a very, very well respected, very renowned professor. Um, and she decides to speak out when he basically puts her in a position where he's going to unfairly fail her because she resisted his sexual advances. And the story, you don't see what happens at first. You, it's one of those stories or one of those movies that has a non-linear storytelling framework, meaning that it doesn't go from A to B to C to D to E to F. You get a little bit of what would be considered present. And then as that present story develops, so essentially the movie starts with them in the hearing where he tells his side of the story and she tells her side of the story. And through the present day, you get callbacks to the series of events leading up to the culmination.
it was just slow. Well, I don't
Very
want to say
slow.
slow,
Is
but
no, but it was a very slow film.
but I can take that if it just I'm not gonna be petty yet. Once we get into some more episodes, I'm gonna start getting petty.
Well, there's no more
But
episodes. It's just
no,
a movie.
I meant like in
Oh
terms of this
no,
series
go ahead,
we're
get petty,
doing.
yo, get petty. Because I had some,
But,
things
well,
to say too
well,
about.
since you obliged me, it just
Yeah.
felt like somebody got a new camera. And the story itself, I like the story.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the flashback so much, like keep coming back to. I felt like a lot of this movie could have been edited out. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the scenes, it was a lot of specials being done with the camera. I felt like a lot of this could have been shortened, or we could have had a better story. Now, I, I'm and I've done most of the jobs in theater, so I know backstage crew, I know hair, makeup, costume. Why didn't they just find a younger character to play this guy? Why did they put this wig on this man
Yeah, I
and
don't know
think
what's
that
up with
we
them
was
putting
gonna
the
be
wig on.
okay?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Like, but after seeing that last Tyler Perry film and dude in that one
Well,
wig, I
But
was
we
like,
were that's
you
next week. That's next week.
yeah, I know
Let's
that's
go with.
next week.
But that's what it
Um,
made me think of because I
mhm.
literally watched. I watched that movie that you're referring to, and I watched this, and I was mad because I said, "Why did they
Do
were
you
they
think
trying
it's
to
a
make him
budget
look
thing?
younger?" No, because he has a bald head in real life,
Okay.
and that's the thing that like I've had to struggle with as a actor and directors making physical look choices for a character
Yeah.
for me.
Hmm.
I it's certain things that make me upset because it's happened to me with my voice. They want me to sound more like I guess a guy. But
Wait, what?
but I mean I've been told that. It's weird, but
What they want you
I
to put more
guess
bass in your voice?
well that's not real.
Like,
You
hey
know, I
Nate, talk like this.
right, but that's not real. Even for you, if you did that, I would laugh at you because that's not how you sound. But people do they make choices like this because they want characters to look younger or they want them to look, but there are subtle things that you could do to make him look younger, like find a younger actor. Like instead of trying to take this guy who you know people are gonna love on the screen and put a wig on him. That's not even I was just so angry because everybody else looked so normal, and you put this wig
So,
on him.
so Nate, I just want to. I'm gonna have a moment of honesty. I did not know that he was wearing a wig until you said something.
But look at
Um,
his hair though. You don't remember seeing him in other movies?
I do remember seeing him in other movies. I didn't know that he was wearing a wig. I mean, I feel like
There's no like there. It's like the hairline is floating. You don't see any of that
nah. See,
when you go.
whatever technicality you seeing in the hair.
The same thing we saw on.
Well, that was that. Okay, so maybe you're right. All right, so that actor in that movie, which we'll talk about next week, um, I knew he just had a bald head. Like you can have a bald. I've had a bald head. You can have a bald head and then grow some hair. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't think that the wig in this one. I mean, now that you
But the
saying
character,
it,
but his
I
character
feel
was
like
supposed to be this young, intelligent, younger than normal for a professor. So they
right.
tried to make him look. I know what they were doing. They were trying to make him
They were
look
trying to make him
younger,
look younger.
and
And
some
the funny
young
thing
people
is,
just look old.
I didn't even think that he looked really that young, even with the hair.
Because it made him look
'Cause
older. It made him look
I
older.
mean, every like when you talking about people looking young, it's really just a matter of perspective, right? So
Right.
all of the other professors at the university were much older than him anyway. So
Yeah, but
whether
that
he
was the
just had
whole
a
point.
bald head or what, like I think
But they
you
set him up to be this young ingenue, this young guy who was
right.
so super intelligent. And then when he came up with that wig on,
So it was
I
like,
was
why not just cast a younger
because
actor?
I just went down the list. So I didn't even like look up the photos like I normally do to kind of
Yeah,
get an idea who's in it. I just went straight to the film. And so when he
you
first
noticed
came
it
out
right
is
away.
when right because
Yeah.
I know this actor. Like, why would you put? I hate when they. If you don't like dresses on black men, I hate wigs on black men. Unless it's like a real character choice. I hate when they put locks, fake locks on black men. I hate when they. I just hate it. It's no reason to.
Yeah, I
It's
remember they
no
put the fake
reason.
locks on Makai Pfeiffer in 8 Mile, and it was so clearly fake, and I was just
And
like,
who else was it? It was
I don't know
the guy,
what
the
that's
father
about.
from Blackish. I forgot what movie. I think was he in that movie too?
Yeah, Anthony Anderson was in that movie.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
he had locks. Like, what is
yeah,
that?
that
Is
was
so
a bit much.
dumb, especially on black men because our hair don't grow like that.
Right.
Maybe you can fake it with a woman and blend it in, but it don't work with black men. It
Yeah.
don't. You can try that with the
I
white
mean,
man, but it don't work
I
for us.
agree. I agree.
It
Um,
don't.
so I thought that the movie was first of all, the movie was like 2+ hours, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna put it like this, yo. Like if you're gonna have me pass 120 minutes, it better be damn good. All right. Um, I don't think this was a bad movie. I thought that it was too long. The impression that I got was not so much that somebody just got their first camera. I got the impression that they knew, like the production crew knew that they were, oh, it was like, oh, we're finally filming a movie for an international audience. Like this, like it was like they knew this was going to Netflix. So we gotta show everything. Um
Yeah, like
I
they got a
am
new camera. They said, let's get that
yeah,
upgraded camera for
right.
this.
Like I'm a big fan of non-linear storytelling. If
Yeah.
there's a payoff, if there's a reason, right? I'm not a fan of it. Like Guy Ritchie is like the master of non-linear storytelling, right? And the reason why it's so good when he does it is because it just fits. It works. It makes sense.
But there's a special way that
Um,
you have to do it when
and
it's
there's
not
right
going in a
because it's
straight line.
intentional. And it's I don't even know
Yeah.
if it's a special way. It just needs to be intentional. I think
But
that there's
it has to be it has to match up to the story. If that all
oh
those
yeah.
flashbacks and moving around in
Well,
time,
yeah. I mean,
it has
obviously,
to be done
so I think that
seamlessly.
the flashbacks and whatnot matched the story. The problem was there was just no payoff. Um, and by that I mean that this was a pretty straightforward film in the sense that there was, there was an impropriety, there was an allegation, there was a trial or a tribunal to determine, you know,
It
did it
was too
happen? Did
serious.
it happen? And then there was a conclusion. And the
Yeah, but it
conclusion
was like
very much.
every step that they took.
Yeah,
Flashback,
exactly. It was like
flashback.
so that's one of those examples where I feel like that nonlinear storytelling can be used in a way that really drives the story. And then there's just this thing called nonlinear storytelling where we can take this scene and place it at another point in the film
Yeah,
just
that's
cuz.
a
And
flashback,
that's what
but
I
it
that's what I
doesn't.
felt like happened in this movie. Like there was no big payoff at the end. Like it pretty much came down to what the story was telling you it was. There was no twist, there was no anything. This could have been wrapped up in 90 minutes and still have been cuz
But
I thought it
the
was
only twist it
a good.
was, the only twist it was until you physically saw him like looking as if he's raping her. Up until that point, you was like, she lying. Like you just thought she was lying unless your mind is set in what is going on in the world today.
Uh-huh.
Like other than that, you like, is she lying? Maybe he's telling the truth because they
Uh-huh.
were telling two completely different stories. And normally, when you use that, like you said, non-linear, but with non-linear,
Right.
it requires a flashback. When you
Mhm.
do flashbacks that much, it's like this is too much.
Yeah,
This
it
is
was it was too much, and it was just
because you
there
could
was
have
no
just told the
point.
story at
And
that point.
exactly. See, the thing about it, and I think that's what separates it. I think at the end of watching some a piece of film that utilizes non-linear storytelling, there should be no question really as to why that plot device was utilized. I think if you sitting there at the end of it and was like, "Yo, you could have just told this story straight out,"
This
I
was a straight film
yeah,
student.
this was
This was a student who was a rebel, who bent hell on telling the story their way. It was very clear. This
yeah.
is not
It was too
somebody
long. A
that's
lot of
made
a lot of the
comic book movies.
expositionary pieces I thought were like it was like they wanted to show off the country and whatnot. And I get that. That might be an important thing.
And there was
You
no
know,
emotion. It was a bunch of Jennifer Hudsons running around. Like there was no real like facial emotion or like it
mm,
was, and that's I know that's kind of true for a lot of
I think that's is
African
that a
movies.
cultural thing?
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
happens in a lot of the Nollywood movies where the emotion is on the surface
Hmm.
only, but it's just, and that's an acting style there, but
Yeah.
it just
It
uh
does ring a little flat.
I could if that was it because I'm used to watching those movies. I used to because those are the movies that they sell in the 7-Elevens when they used to have like the DVDs.
Yeah.
Always the
Yep.
Nollywood
Yep.
movie.
There's always a
And
Nollywood section.
it's just it was too redundant. It was too like
Mhm.
after like the third or fourth flashback, I was like, I'm not.
Mm.
I'm just watching this so I can be honest and do my homework. But
Yeah.
other than that,
And the sad part is it's not a bad film. That's the thing. They could have just told the story. They could have even started with the incident and then we could have watched how the path to her for her the
well,
story
dude,
was really about whether or not she was going to get kicked out of school, right? Like
which
is
was the craziest premise ever. Like it was just the craziest. Who gets raped and they get kicked out of school? And I understand the first story, but it still was unclear as to why that first group of students got kicked out of school.
well, somebody died.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
and
and, and so I was led to believe that the preface the point of them being
and
expelled
beat
was
him.
because of the end result was
Well,
that,
no,
and
because they took it in their own hands.
they
They didn't
took it
bring
into
it
their own
through the
hands, and
board.
it caused a death, right? And
Right.
they didn't kill him, but what they did directly impact. So I get that, and also and I think it's key to point out, like, he did not rape her, but he did try to force himself on her. And so it really did come down to a he say she say situation.
It's just that
Which,
the timeline and the storyline
yeah.
did not
But
match
they
up
didn't
at
need
all.
to, they just didn't need to tell it in a non-linear storytelling, and it was just way too long. It clocked in at like 2 hours and 17 minutes. I was like, yo, like, even I almost didn't watch it. I was getting ready to hit you up, like, bro, we might need to push this back to maybe like a later episode or something.
Nope,
I don't know if
nope,
I'm really
nope, nope. You got it. You put it on the list.
I
You
put it
got to
on,
watch
but I
it.
put it on the list, right? So I was like, but yeah, like, first of all, like, but let me just say this. I would say check it out. It is a bit long. I think it's a story, especially today. I think it's a story, and maybe that's why it's on Netflix, and it kind of got the traction that it got because of the subject matter. I mean, I think it's really relevant right now about what's going on. It deals a lot in, like, just power,
Yeah, it was too
and
much.
how
Then
that
he got
power
the
is
first lady. He
utilized.
did this too. He got her pregnant, and I was
So
like, "It's
yeah,
too much.
that's
It's too
where
much."
I'm like, so there ain't nobody know this. Like, how
Somebody
you get away
saved the day because she didn't say anything. They didn't say anything,
with it? Yeah.
so she
So
found the person in the nick of time, and it came in
yeah.
3 minutes late. Next.
Yeah. So I like, if I had to rate it and,
Mm-mm.
like, been, I give it a two, two and a
Mm-mm.
half, two and a strong possible.
That wig
Sister
alone did
Killer,
it for me.
don't hit me up cussing me out if you watch it and you
They
ain't
could have
like
put a
it. Like,
kufi on that man, made him wear a kufi or something, but not a hot top fade. That's what I thought it was at first. I thought his hair was a kufi
but it was cool.
until he turned around. I was like, no, that's a
Yeah,
bad
and
wig.
if you backstage and if you in
Mm-mm.
the makeup and stuff, yeah, you probably gonna notice that right off.
Nope, not doing it.
So yeah, like, watch at your own risk. I thought it was a decent film. I just thought it made some questionable choices in the storytelling that could possibly throw it off.
Got two more left.
Two more left. So we into our documentaries now. The Black Godfather.
So if we could just you take LA 92 and I'll take
All right, cool.
Black Godfather.
That works for me. All right, so the Black Godfather. Tell us about that one, Nate.
So the Godfather, it tells the story of Clarence Avant. He was kind of like a silent benefactor and dad and uncle and godfather to all of these individuals, from starting with the civil rights movement all the way up to the present. This man is, I believe he's still alive, and he aided a lot of people, supported a lot of careers. He was the reason we have Bill Withers, and musicians like that. He went against the grain. He was the one. Is a point in the movie where he says, "I did not go out and do any protests, because had somebody hit me, I would have hit them back and I wouldn't have been here." And that would have affected so much within the music career, because he had his hands in so many different pots in terms of the entertainment, film, music, politics. We learned that he is the one who got Barack Obama in the time slot that he had at that Democratic convention that he was at, which allowed people to see him and see his whole speech on TV versus that little snippet. He was the person who told Bill Clinton not to back down when they were impeaching him. He's the person who started Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, giving them their push. He was the one who helped Soul Train keep from having any type of competition, or keeping it from having a white style competition show like it. He really aided and gave a lot of advice. And many people, he was just a guy. He didn't have any other talents other than he had a lot of charisma. So this documentary follows his career and interviews him and his family and many of the people who he has impacted. And when I say there's a trickling down effect from the new school to Puff Daddies and I can't think of the other guy name that was Puff Daddy's contemporary, but producers, movies, so many people who you got to see and you get to see can contribute him, Clarence Avant, to their start. And it's going all the way back to Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement. He had a hand in all of that. And he was able to walk in spaces that most Black people could not walk in at a time where they wasn't checking for Black people. Most of the white companies that had um, Black music in the music part, they had Black artists, and they had, you know how certain at one point it was just like their Black artist label. He's the person who was responsible for finding all these people their labels and getting them connected to certain people, you know, and everybody had nothing but positive things to say about this man, but he had no extraordinary qualities other than having a great personality. He was big on paying people what they were worth. And even if somebody he was working with, like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, when they initially worked with him, it was in their first project with Janet Jackson. So he helped them to find Janet Jackson. He was friends with Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson. So that's how, and uh, Quincy Jones. So he was able to connect all these people. And I can keep going, but please just watch the documentary if you have not seen it. And I've been looking at it for a while, even before this podcast started. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. But, you know, documentaries on Netflix can be catch and go. But this
even
was
the
really
trailer
cool.
was rather like cryptic.
Yeah,
Like
but
when you watched it, I remember when this came out and I watched the trailer and it didn't
it made him seem
quite
like the
go
go-to
into
guy.
what it was about.
Yeah, but it made you think. Well, he was very heavily connected to the Sinatras not, I'm not gonna say gang, but like the good boys. But he also made his stamp, and he started a company that inspired many producing companies like Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Babyface, and the other guy, I forgot his name, and many Puff Daddy, all these groups. He's the one who brought Andre Pharrell to what's the company that was sold with the Supremes that they started out when they came to California, and eventually they sold it. Barry Gordy sold his company, and that brought Andre Harrell to that and made him the president. So all of that happened because of this one man. They just showed you a domino effect of all of the people that he affected and impacted, um, and gave a platform to. At a time where it wasn't really popular for Black people to have that type of power. But yeah, so that was Black Godfather.
Awesome. So go check it
Watch
out.
it.
Let us know
Definitely
what you
watch it.
think about it. Currently playing on Netflix. It's a Netflix original documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And you can check it out. Let us know what you thought. Our final documentary for the night. Whew, man, why you do this? Why'd you split these last two up?
Did you want me to
LA
do it?
92. No. I'm just it's just, man. I mean, the tagline, as you probably can see in the poster, this displayed is the past is prologue. Not LA 92 is about the 90. The core of it is about the 92 riots. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know the story, a black man named Rodney King was beaten to very badly. I mean, to within an inch of his life.
Interesting. Yeah.
He was beaten by several police officers in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And unknowns, and this is 1992. This is before video phones. It's before cell phones in general. There was like rich people walking around with cell phones that were like as big as rocks. So there were no camera phones or anything like this. But unbeknownst to them, there was someone with a home camcorder
Mm-hmm.
who recorded
Sound
the Rodney King beating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Rodney King was beaten. It was caught on video. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing that's happening today.
Yeah. You don't see him
You
fighting
see
back.
him like he is clearly unable to fight back.
They had him on his
He is
knees, handcuffed.
they are beating him with billy clubs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this tape goes on for a few
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rodney King's I think it was 4 officers that were eventually charged.
And not convicted.
There was a trial,
Mm-hmm.
and all 4 officers were acquitted.
Yep. Yep.
As a result, uh, protests started,
Mm-hmm.
which then turned to an all-out riot. And to this day, there has never been a riot like the '92 LA riots on American soil. So,
Right.
if you're unfamiliar with Rodney King and the '92 riots, and you're thinking about Baltimore after Freddie Gray, if you're thinking about Ferguson after Mike Brown, um, Minnesota after George Floyd, I'm just gonna say no. The 1992 LA riots resulted in, I think, something like 60 people dead, 900 some odd structural fires. Pretty much the entire city of Los Angeles went up in flames. There was destruction. I mean, everything that you're seeing recently, just on 1,000. What's interesting about the 1992 riots, or this film, not the 1992 riots, but what's interesting about LA 92 is that it starts off with the Watts riots, which I believe happened in the 1960s. Um, the Watts riot basically resulted in and they have footage. It's really just the type of footage that you really probably don't want to see right now, of police going into Watts, which was a neighborhood in California in the 1960s. This upheaval led to the National Guard being deployed um, in this neighborhood. It also prefaces it with another incident in which a young black girl is shot dead by a Korean store owner, which happened. I think this happened after the Rodney King incident, but before the trial. So this happened in between people finding out and seeing the footage from Rodney King. And I mean, the footage was national news. It was all over the world.
It happened. It
Um,
actually happened before. I think where they placed it, it was just
So,
showing us a
okay, all
timeline
right.
of
So that may
riots.
have happened. I was a little
Yeah.
bit confused on
It was just the way
chronologically
they
when it
edited
happened,
it.
but
Yeah.
where it placed in the documentary. All right,
Right.
thank you, Nate. Um, it's just a really, first of all, like, let me preface this and like just warn anyone who hasn't seen it yet and might be thinking, if you're one of those people who are listening in and you value what we're saying, first of all, thank you. And if you haven't seen something that we talk about, I want to warn you, particularly with what's been going on over this year. I would say that I just want you to be prepared for some of the images and things that you're going to see if you watch this documentary. It is not very easy to watch. I don't think it's easy to watch in a vacuum. I think it's much harder to watch um, today, where we are, Rodney King existed in a time where nothing that the police was doing was caught on film. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We had been telling them, our community, our people had been telling and had been documenting ourselves, and we had been talking about and trying to communicate what it was like to be black in the United States and our relationship with police.
Right.
So in 1992, Rodney King was really that was the first time that everybody across the country got to see it with their own eyes. Some of the things that we have been trying to tell people was going on in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're seeing that on a monthly basis, it seems like. We're seeing some type of injustice, some young black man or woman losing their lives in relatively simple altercations. Like Rodney King was pulled over because he was driving erratically. They suspected that he may have been intoxicated. But it's always these relatively minor infractions. So I just want to say this. I just want to warn you that if you, I just want to let you know that it is heavy. If you find yourself being someone who is affected by some of the images that we've been seeing lately, then I want to caution you on watching this and just let you know, just be prepared. It's a disheartening watch. It's a very particularly well done documentary, but it's so timely that it's scary. And as good of a documentary as it is, and I think that everyone should watch it. I think that I just have to caution you because it's one of those documentaries that will leave you it could potentially leave you with a feeling of hopelessness. To see the footage from the 1960s riots in Watts and the response by police and the National Guard and what they did to black bodies and during that, to watch the store cam video of this young girl being shot in the back of the head in a convenience store, and then to watch the beating of Rodney King, it could potentially just be too much for some people. But I think that it adds some much needed perspective to what's going on today, and particularly to anyone out there who might be listening to our podcast who doesn't understand the riots in Minnesota, the riots in Ferguson. I challenge you to watch this documentary. If my math is correct, it's 2020. 1992 was quite a ways away. It was quite a way back. And the one thing that this documentary will drive home to you is that not much has changed.
Right.
So I definitely I think it's absolutely binge worthy. I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it, but I want to warn you that the subject matter and the images you may find very disturbing.
Yep. So
thank you for coming to the Binge Worthy podcast. That's it, Nate. You got any final words?
New episodes every Tuesday. Go to our Instagram, Facebook, and Facebook and Instagram pages, as well as on YouTube. And you can find us. Just look up Binge Worthy Podcast, and you'll see the first 2 episodes. And this will be dropping every Tuesday. So a new one comes out every Tuesday. So stay tuned, stay locked in for all that's coming up. We'll have some guests pretty soon, and some more interesting thematic collections of movies and TVs and film. But stay locked in. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.